Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Opera 101. Opera 101 is Cleveland Opera Theater's series in which we take you into this strange and wonderful world of opera and talk to you about all sorts of things. In light of this month being Verdi month, and this week us focusing on La Traviata, I thought we would talk a little bit about some of the practical concerns that we face musically when we approach this show. It is not an easy show to do. It is one that's done very, very, very often, but not without a lot of toil. The first thing that I think bears mention is, and probably the most important thing, is how difficult the role of Violetta is for a soprano. It's often said to sing Violetta, one needs to be a coloratura soprano in Act 1, a lyric soprano in Act 2, and a dramatic soprano in Act 3. All this to say, Verdi adjusts the way he writes musically for Violetta based on what the character is going through emotionally. In Act 1, she is living fully for pleasure. Her writing is very light, but very, very demanding. There's a lot of coloratura, which is a lot of motion, a lot of very difficult runs to sing. That's exemplified in her Act 1 aria, Sempre Libera, or Always Free, where she resolves that she will never fall in love with someone. She, of course, does, and in Act 2, she is with Alfredo when his father, Germont, comes to tell her that she is causing Alfredo to disrespect to the family because she is a courtesan, and his daughter wants to get married, but his daughter's fiancé will not marry someone who is of a family in which a courtesan is someone who is also in that family. All this to say, it's much more serious. It's much more somber. There isn't the need for this light, flowing, fun, pleasure-seeking vocalization. Therefore, the writing changes. In Act 3, after she has been scorned by Alfredo, he doesn't know that it was his father who told her to leave him. She is dying of consumption. She is wishing, she could have had more life and had more time with Alfredo. Her writing gets heavier. It ends with a slow funeral march, and therefore her singing is much more reflective or looking forward to the way Puccini would write for a singer like Madama Butterfly, that heavy, dramatic sound. All this is to say, when we are putting together a production of La Traviata, we have to be very, very sensitive of this, and very, very sensitive of the fact that Violetta is almost always on stage. There is essentially just a little small part of Act 2 that she is not in. So we need to be very careful with our pacing. We need to make sure that our singer doesn't have to overdo it in the first act. How do we do this? Well, a lot of it has to do with balance. We need to make sure that the orchestra is giving the singer a canvas upon which to sing, as opposed to a barrier that they have to push through, especially with Sempre Libera, the aria at the end of Act 1. The singer needs to be so relaxed and feel so free and not like they have to push, because if they have to push in that instance, they are going to be way, way, way too tired for Act 2 and Act 3. This speaks to a larger issue about the importance of balance, especially in this show. There are a lot of moments. Verdi was such a terrific orchestral composer. The orchestra really serves as kind of another character, or the audience's view into the drama. The orchestra reflects the drama in such a strong way that there are a lot of moments where it's dramatic, it's angry, it's sad, it's soulful, and we want to just wrangle all the sound out of the orchestra that we can because of how powerful the emotion is and how powerfully it's written, but we can't because we have delicate voices on top. We, as conductors, instrumentalists, need to find a way to achieve that emotional writing without drowning out the singers. Articulation is a really strong way in which we can do this. If an orchestra plays softer, but with a ton of articulation, either it's shorter, more pressure on the bow, starting something really loud and then coming down, these are the sorts of things that we need to think about. There's a very common gesture in Italian music. Verdi uses it all the time. At several points in La Traviata, where there will be one measure of orchestra alone before a singer starts to sing. This one little measure is where we get to set how the emotion feels and then hand it off to the singer. A typical gesture will be like and it's written piano, which means soft. But oftentimes in Italian music, the way we interpret this is yum bum 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 bum. We start with a huge accent, really convey what's happening emotionally, and then back off and hand it to the singer. Little things like this, finding where we can do these sorts of things, is what makes a great opera orchestra. We don't have the freedom that a symphonic orchestra does. We can't just play as loud as the music warrants all the time because of the singers, and we have to be sensitive. But what it does is create some really, really fun challenges. If anyone has any specific instances, especially in La Traviata, where they'd be interested in learning more about how we treat the orchestra, please submit a comment, because it's a really interesting thing, and there are so many places where this is the case. When it comes to the chorus, text clarity is extremely important, and Verdi writes a lot of very, very fast choral music. This takes a ton of rehearsing, this takes a ton of fine-tuning, especially after staging, because depending on what the staging is, the chorus are the party guests usually, and they have to engage, they have to be genuinely horrified when Alfredo pays Violetta for her services as a courtesan, as a way of demeaning her after she broke his heart. The horror that needs to be heard in the way the chorus sings, and how fast it is, how much of a mouthful it is. It takes so much rehearsing, and it takes so much getting used to doing it while staging. These sorts of things we need to really, really hone in. And right after that, we have the concertato at the end of Act 2, which is very slow and very beautiful, and it gives the soloists this amazing canvas on which to sing. The chorus, however, we need to make sure that we are very restrained, and that we are just kind of providing a rhythmic pulse and staying out of the way. When the music is as beautiful as it is, singers, being good musicians, we tend to want to reflect that in the way we sing, but we can't. We have to let the soloists do that and stay back. So these are the sorts of things that we have to think about. Balance, pacing, tempo is another big one. We all have the tempo in mind that we want, but do they all match up? We may have this perfect tempo for a certain aria, but when that music comes back, is it going to be relative? Also, if a singer wants to take something a little slow, we have to talk to them. That's fine, but at this tempo, will we be able to sustain the energy through the rest of the show? I hope this answered some questions. If you have anything that you'd like us to further elaborate on, please don't be afraid to send us a comment. We'd be happy to do so. We just figured we'd give you a little overview about the things that this opera entails and the sort of things that we have to think about, maybe a little more so than with other pieces, or, in some instances about the same. As always, thank you so much for joining us, and stay safe, and we will see you soon. Thanks, and take care.